Do you ever get that feeling that one day you might get too old for air sports? Well, think again. 99-year-old Californian woman Robina Asti is now in the record books as the world's oldest flight instructor and active pilot. Robina gave her final flight lesson on Sunday for Next Gen Flight Academy at Riverside Airport. She always said that she loves getting people to experience what it's like to lift off this earth. Well, we wish you good health and many more years in the sky, Robina. We totally get your passion for flight because it's our passion too. I'm Regan Tetlow, and this is Air Sports News. It gives me great pleasure to present the results of the first big SAILPLANE event organised under the coronavirus restrictions. Austroglide 2020 was the first big test for glider pilots in the difficult and long distance tasks this year. The last task for the competitors in the 50-metre class was a stunning 375 kilometres. Lack of training wasn't a problem as 14 athletes flew all this distance with a great average speed of 80 to 90 kilometres per hour. It comes as no surprise that the win and the cup goes to Sebastian Carver, second place Lucas Bleichek, and the third Jekik Fliss. You can find all the results for the other classes on our Facebook fan page. What about hot air ballooning competitions? Last week we informed you about the upcoming Leszno Cup in Poland, and now we have clear confirmation also from Nowiczów, where an international hot air balloon contest is about to begin in early August. 15 athletes have been invited to the start in this amazing event, including world champion Daria Golaska from Poland and Hungarian pilot Rita Bejes. All takeoffs are planned to take place in the absolutely stunning and legendary Spa Park. The organisers have prepared 5 tasks, the starts of which will take place at 6 in the morning and at 6 in the afternoon from the 6th till the 8th of August. And this leads into the first of our special guest interviews. I caught up with balloon pilots Tommy Veterveen and Matthias Schegel from A Life of Ballooning, currently living the good life down in Italy.
I've been stuck indoors for the last 4 months. What about your lockdown? How long were you at home for? How did it work?
Well, in Germany it was around 2 months we in fact couldn't fly, and in the Netherlands it was different, right?
Yeah, it was a bit different. Well, I had to work from home and ballooning was not allowed. And finally, 2 weeks ago, we are allowed to fly again in the Netherlands as well. We need to wear some face masks, but at least we can fly with passengers. So we are very happy that we can fly again.
So where are you now? You're in Italy. Tell me what you're doing.
Yeah, so this is our first ballooning event this summer. Luckily, this one wasn't cancelled. And we're in Umbria, that's south of Perugia, between Perugia and Rome. And so it's 2 weeks of ballooning here, flying every morning and having leisure time throughout the day. And for the evening, we have some social activities with the other teams and some free evenings as well, where we can spend the time on our own. Yeah, so it's ballooning and holidays.
And where I come from in the Netherlands, everything is flat.
Yes.
And in here, everything is like a valley. It's not flat at all. And you have a lot of grain fields, wine fields. There's a big city just around it. It's named Todi. And during the event, we are trying to fly over the city. And then we also have some competition flights. But it's really awesome flying here because of all the valleys and the different wind directions. It's just a beautiful area to fly in.
Were you flying this morning?
Of course,
Yes.
yeah.
Wow.
Actually, the weather is every morning, it's always perfect.
Wow.
For evening flights, it's a bit too gusty, so you cannot take off. But in the mornings, it's always beautiful weather. And at least it's not that hot then already, because in the evenings, they predict a temperature of 39 degrees Celsius during this week.
The full-length interview with Tommy and Matthias can also be found on our YouTube channel. We have a new world record in hang gliding. Congratulations goes to Owen Morse from the USA, who flew the longest distance ever. The FAI has received both world and North American record claims for hang gliding, and it is 358 kilometers out in return distance and free out and return distance. Owen Morse, with his T3 World's Wing flight, claims to beat current world records set by Austrian pilot Thomas Weisenberger in 2013. The new record was set up after takeoff from Bartlett in California, USA. And another world record may be confirmed soon by the FAI, this time in the sailplane category. Guys from the Crystal Squadron moved to Nevada a few days ago, trying to reach some new outstanding sailplane achievements. The thermal lifts were so strong that some pilots needed to extend air brakes at a height of 18,000 feet so as not to exceed legal airspace for gliders. Strong thermals allowed some of them to fly distances longer than 330 miles. We're keeping our fingers crossed for the official records confirmation. Relaxation of the coronavirus restrictions allows organisers in some countries to take a risk and invite spectators for air shows again. After the UK, now the first air show event is planned for Leszno in Poland. The event is to be called Anecdote, and I probably don't need to explain to you why. With all official restrictions, guests will be able to watch the show with masks and social distancing procedures. Amongst others, the Fireflies display team, the LIM 2 historic fighter jet, and the Blanix gliders confirmed their arrival. The event will take place from the 28th to the 29th of August. So the question that we still have to answer is the future of aviation competitions, especially if and when we encounter a second wave of coronavirus. I spoke to Steve Mistro, VP of Sports for the World Games Association.
I just want to find out, Steve, how has it been these last few months? The workload, I can't imagine.
I'll tell you what, we have such great partnerships with our venues, with the vendors that we have already engaged, and with all of the international federations that govern the sports of the World Games. The understanding and the cooperation and the eagerness to all land on common reschedule dates that work. That was our biggest anxiety point, was with everyone's calendar being shuffled, how are we going to make this work? And everybody was willing to put aside, with respect to the venues, they were willing to put aside the obligations that they had already made for our July 2022 dates.
So it's the 40th anniversary of the World Games?
That's correct. The 40th anniversary. Well, our original dates of July of 2021 would be the 40th anniversary. So I guess with moving a year, it'll be the 41st. But I think everyone's still celebrating the milestones that were initially set, pre-COVID milestones, we'll call them. But yeah, 40 years since the World Games was founded and first contested in the U.S. In 1981. So it'll be the return to North America, which is another exciting point. The process has been what I expected it would be. What is unexpected and what is impossible to prepare for unless you've done it before is the multi-sport aspect. Planning for one event at one venue on one date or one date range is one animal. Planning for 60 plus events at 20 plus venues over 11 days, it's a completely different animal.
Want to know more from Steve? Go to our YouTube channel where you can find full-length interviews with all of our special guests. Last week was a huge milestone in the aviation technology. Bell's autonomous pod transport, called the APT, attempted a first ever autonomous flight beyond the visual line of sight from its test team. Bell intends to produce two versions of the APT, one a small quadcopter weighing 55 pounds with a range of 18 miles at 90 knots. The other is a 300-pound aircraft with a 70-pound payload, 35-mile range and a max speed of 110 knots. So keep your eyes in the skies to see the new evolutionary flying vehicles. There have been a few attempts in Poland to do recreational balloon flights over the big cities. This time, 4 balloons took off from the heart of Warsaw, the capital of Poland, and they did it at night. Balloon launches from the middle of the city with a population of 2 million usually borders on a miracle due to airspace constraints, passenger air traffic, and complicated procedures. The whole thing must also match the right wind direction. Ultimately, 4 balloons took off a few days ago, and they did it before sunrise, giving pilots and passengers an absolutely unique view of the city. What a sight! The COVID-19 pandemic has hit aviation and especially the airline industry hard. The majority of the layoffs appears to be still to come. Avweb.com heard what pilot Erica Jackman sings about the situation and released it online. I won't say a word, just have a listen to this.
Imagine all the people living COVID-free. Imagine there's no lockdowns. It isn't hard to do.
So why not click over to her channel and wish her all the best. Now it's time for our Hero of the Week. On the 27th of July 1934, Fräulein Nellie Hedwig Diner, named as Europe's first airline hostess, died in an aircraft accident. At the age of 22, she began flying for Swissair Airlines. Her 79th flight departing Zurich Airport to Berlin was her last one. Nellie Hedwig Diner was spotted before the crash in the passenger cabin of Swissair's Condor II aircraft at Dubendorf, photographed as well by Walter Mitzenhauser, a founder of Swissair. The aircraft was flying in a thunderstorm at approximately 3,000 meters when the right wing structure failed and separated from the aircraft. The Condor crashed into a forest and caught fire. All 12 people aboard were killed. Stewardess Nellie Danier was known as the Angel of the Skies. On the 26th of July, Artur Kelek was born. He is one of the most recognizable Polish aerobatic pilots. Amongst many stunt flights, he performs an upside-down flight under a bridge, and he flies in formation with a heavy MiG-29 Fulcrum jet fighter. Happy birthday to William MacArthur Jr. This American astronaut is one of those who spent more than half a year in outer space. MacArthur, born on the 26th of July 1951, was a crew member for 4 space missions and stayed in space for almost 225 days in total. On the 27th of July 1949, the de Havilland Comet jet flew for the first time. It was the first commercial jet aircraft in service. Many of the problems and issues with the Comet aircraft formed a basis for the future safety procedures in commercial aviation. Many of them are still valid. On the 29th of July 1879, legendary German pilot Erwin Böhm was born. He was one of the best fighter aces during the First World War, shooting down 24 enemy aircraft. He died in 1917, killed by a British bomber during a dogfight. On the 1st of August 1955, Lockheed U-2 made its first flight. This American high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft was built by the CIA, but was also used by the United States Air Force and NASA. It received the unofficial nickname the Dragon Lady. Margot van Etzdorf, born on the 1st of August 1907, was a German pilot and first woman to fly from Europe to Japan in a solo flight. In 1933, she crashed her aircraft. She survived it, but she suddenly committed suicide on the spot. The reason was increasing discrimination against women in the Third Reich, consisting in depriving them of the possibility of living in any other way than the traditional children, kitchen and church. News at airsportspromotion.com. That's our email where you can send all the latest aviation news from your region, but also you can give comments and advice to us directly. I'm also available on Twitter. So that's all for today. We'll see you back here next week, and as always, stay safe and keep your eyes on the skies.